So all across the bastions of the internet, you will see the same tired argument being used time and time again. Socialism can't work. Have you seen Venezuela? Well, if we want to figure out whether or not a country is socialist or not, it's best to look at how the economy is doing. And by that, I don't mean whether or not the economy is shit, I mean what are the main functions that put together the economic structure. Now, if you look at the economy of Venezuela, it's actually quite interesting as to who's in charge of it for the most part. And we find that 2/3 of the economy is run by private industry. 70% of the GDP gained in the economy is gained through private industry. We find that 55% of out-of-pocket healthcare spending is done in the private sector. And 80% of the workforce is done in the private sector. So this is the Great Republic of Venezuela, the Great Socialist Republic of Venezuela, and the overwhelming majority of the people involved in the GDP and the entire economy is in the private sector. So, damn.
Aw, shit. You got us. That's right, it's Venezuela, it's capitalist, except for the fact that you didn't describe the structure of the economy at all. You described some GDP, some figures you found in a Fox News article dated back in 2010. It's 2017, by the way. And not only that, but there's nothing there. There's no real structure there. Do yourself a favor and don't become an economist. don't give it a shot. Don't try it. Don't quit your day job. There's much more to looking at an economy than going to the internet there and finding any article you can that agrees with your sentiment. You had to go back to 2010 to find something to fit your narrative. Really, think about that for a sec, dude. The only thing that data says is that the government of Venezuela hasn't expropriated the rest of the economy yet. It doesn't even talk about the various controls. You've got currency manipulation. You've got price controls. You've got exchange controls. You've got quotas. You've got a country that is completely reliant on imports and has been before Chavez because of what is known as the Dutch disease. And then Chavez comes in and makes it absolutely impossible for the private businesses in Venezuela to actually operate. Government in Venezuela controls every aspect of a business that any business owner would actually need to have in order to be considered a private business by any standard. That's why the Economic Freedom Index that the Heritage Foundation puts out in 2017, Venezuela's rated 179. That's just one up above North Korea. It's one up above North Korea, for Christ's sakes. You dumb fuck. And I know that you're not going to bring any of this up. You're not going to talk about any of these price controls, any of these quotas. You're not going to talk about any of the exchange rates. There was 2, then there was 4, now there's 2 again. How hard it is for private companies to actually get dollars so they can actually import anything. Yeah, 55% of the healthcare is private. Yeah, well, they lack 85% of the shit they need to fucking care for anybody, you dumb fuck. And why do you think it's private? They got a shit ton of public hospitals there. Why do you think most people go to fucking private care places? Because as bad as it is, it's still fucking better than the public hellholes, the public shitholes where people fucking die in the fucking beds. That's why. They don't even fucking die and they don't have the fucking beds.
Now, whenever you attempt to say that a country isn't socialist for whatever reasons, you will immediately get the reaction of, well, are you saying it's not true socialism?
Well, what the fuck is socialism? What is it? Tell me, what do you think socialism is? Because that's pretty fucking socialist in my opinion. That's pretty goddamn socialist. You have zero respect for property rights. Zero. That's pretty fucking socialist to me. Seems to me that you have a political system that systematically violates property rights. The fucking definition of socialism, as far as I'm concerned. Don't give me this bullshit. Socialism is workers owning the means of production. You can do that in a capitalist economy. It's called co-op. Happens all the fucking time. That's not socialism. I love how you put that in there like a preemptive argument. Oh, don't say that I'm saying this isn't true socialism. Well, that's what you're saying. You're saying this isn't true socialism. You know, don't make me bring out the toothbrush argument, dude, because I'll do it.
Well, look, you can't just go to any country you see in the world and say, look at it and point, right, socialism, and then I say, well, actually, that's not, and then you say, oh, so it's only socialism when you want it to be. Look, I can definitely tell you that when an economy is 70% of it is in private hands, 80% of the people who work in that workforce are in private hands, and Chavez was elected 19 years ago, and we still haven't seen any reduction in that. Well, you can't call that economy socialist, right? I'm sorry.
Okay, so let's say you've got a toothbrush, right? I hope you do. And your toothbrush belongs to you. Then some guy gets elected and then makes some laws and says that you can only use your toothbrush on Tuesdays. You have to use your toothbrush for this amount of time. You can only use your toothbrush in this area. And you have to share your toothbrush with X amount of people. And you don't have a choice. If you violate these laws, you're going to go to prison. Is that your toothbrush? Do you actually own it when you can't control how you use it, where you use it, when you use it? You can't control other people from not using it. If you don't control any of those things about your toothbrush, is it yours? Of course not. It's not your fucking toothbrush. It's the state's toothbrush at that point. You got some politician going, oh, I'm going to control the way these guys use their toothbrushes. And the crowd's like, yeah, control those motherfuckers' toothbrushes, yeah. And he's like, oh, I'm going to make sure that he shares his toothbrushes with everybody. Everybody gets a little bit of his toothbrush. And everybody's like, yeah, do that. And he gets elected, then he passes those laws. And then you've got all kinds of people using your toothbrush. It goes all over the place. Is it yours? At what point can we say that it's not yours now? It was a political system that caused this to happen. It was done democratically. Ownership is being violated. That's socialism, dude. You can't get away from it. It is socialism. Just because the government Bureau of Toothbrushes can put your name down as the owner of that toothbrush in their statistical data so that when some asshole writes an article for Fox News, he can put that data down, it doesn't mean it's still your fucking toothbrush.
Chavez was president of Venezuela for 15 years, so we must ask how come he didn't bring about any form of socialism.
This is the not real socialism argument. This is what it is. You do understand there, comrade. Not all socialists believe in having a violent revolution in which the entire economy is changed overnight. Most socialists actually want incremental changes where the government enacts socialist policies slowly over time. In 2003, you have the first round of currency manipulations called Commission de Administración de Divisas, CADIVI, which was pegging the dollar, the bolivar to the dollar, which was some kind of an attempt to curb capital flight, which already amounted to $35 billion since 1999. Now, rich people, they try to leave. They try to get their money the fuck out of the country when you start controlling the economy the way that Chavez was trying to control the economy. That same law passed 400 price controls on basic foods as well as medicine. All right. And this led to even more control. So in 2009, you had quotas that were set up for 12 basic foods. And those 12 basic foods were also subject to price controls. Not very capitalist, I'd say. 2011, fair price and cost law. In 2012, you have a expansion of the law of fair and cost prices. 2013, a new law called the fair price law. 2014, they messed with the currency exchange rate yet again. 2015, organic law of fair prices. At this point, it's harder to find an industry in Venezuela that does not have a controlled price. I mean, look for it. Look for an industry in Venezuela in which the price is not controlled. Alright, you got your list? Now take that list and figure out how many of those businesses haven't been expropriated by the Venezuelan government. one of the biggest problems of using an article dated back in 2010 is it's 7 years old. A lot's happened since then. So, if you look at the Venezuelan GDP, well, they don't have figures anymore. They stopped giving us some, but the last time that the government actually gave us some GDP figures, the Venezuelan economy is largely based on the petroleum sector and manufacturing. Now, revenue from petroleum exports accounts for more than 50% of the country's GDP as of 2014. The oil sector also accounts for over 90%, anywhere from 95 to 98% of the total export economy. The only part of the Venezuelan economy that isn't subject to price controls is companies that export. And if you look at the top 10 exporters in Venezuela, what do you find? I'm going to list top 10 Venezuela exporters. PDVSA, which is oil. Obviously the top. They also own Citgo. It's not privately owned. Alcasa Aluminum. Siderurgia del Orinoco. Steel. Siderurgia del Turbio. Steel. Mercantil Servicios. This is banking. Bronco Occidental. Banking. Resuo. Gold. Las Cristinas. Gold. Cemex. Slag ash or cement. Ferdinitro. Fertilizer. Those businesses account for almost 100% of all exports in Venezuela. How many of them do you suppose haven't been expropriated? There's just one. There's a Mexican bank. Banco Occidental hasn't been expropriated. And what do you have left? You've got a few inorganic chemical companies that haven't been expropriated yet. We'll see. Some fish companies and some beverage, spirits, and vinegar companies that haven't been expropriated. Well, what does that amount to? 0.5%, 0.4%, 0.2% of GDP? Almost the entire economy in Venezuela is controlled. If you are an exporter, you're subject to expropriation. That lingers over everybody's head. If you're a domestic producer, you're subject to price controls. The government in Venezuela can and often do deny companies the ability to exchange bolivars for dollars for their imports. If you are part of any opposition to the Venezuelan government, they will do everything they can to destroy your company. You're sitting here crying because Venezuela hasn't switched over to complete socialism. Well, it isn't from a lack of trying. Every time they expropriate a company, they get fined from the international community. They can't afford to keep expropriating companies. They've run out of money. They've run out of steam. Venezuela's, they've gotten to the point where they have to hold on to every fucking dollar that they have. They have to control the exchange so much so that they can feed their own people because they've taken over everything. And they're set to run out of money. They're going to run out. This is going to get worse. It's not going to get better. It's going to get worse. Look at how many times they've been fined. Look at how many times they've lost lawsuits and had to pay out. They can't keep going at the rate that they were going. Your socialist paradise, it's not going to be able to happen. It can't happen. As you expropriate more and more businesses, and if you can't pay the settlements, people in the international community will stop doing business with you, and your people will starve to death. What do you think would happen to a country that's completely reliant on imports, that decides that they're going to rise up and have a glorious socialist revolution? The imports will stop coming in. That's what will happen. They will all die. But I'm sure that you're the type of person that would see it through. You would vote for all these laws. Everything that Chavez and Maduro has done, the labor laws, the currency controls, the laws controlling profit margins, all those things you would vote for in your own country because you're fucking retarded. And the outcome would be the same. And you would still vote for it because you're so stuck on your ideology, you can't admit that these socialist policies have negative outcomes. You're sitting here and saying, oh, that's not real socialism, because in 2010, the government statistics show that 2/3 of the blah, 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 blah. Come on. These policies are socialist in nature. These policies do not work. I think I'm done here. The rest of this video, Bad Mouse goes over there's some wealthy people in Venezuela that aren't hurting as bad as the poor. And it's like, yeah, dude, you mean to tell me that socialism hurts the poor more than the wealthy? Oh my God, I didn't know that. And then he goes on with some failures of capitalism, showing different economic crises in America, which were caused by central banking, another socialist institution, and which are exacerbated by central planning, another socialist tenet. So yeah, I think I'm done. If you like this content, please like and subscribe. I'm Snizzy Poo. We'll see you next time.